Hello and welcome to your first video of the 6th section, Best Way to Code a Line and an Area Chart. In this section, we will code step by step a line and an area chart using D3.js version 5. We will start from the basics, like adding the library D3.js to our project, and then coding and styling the axes. I would like to mention here that although we are going to go step by step, it is assumed that you have the basic knowledge of JavaScript and understanding the basic concepts of D3.js. As always, in the resources section, you can find the same files as I am using. Let's start with how to add and style the x-axis. Just open up your favorite text editor. I'm using Sublime. And if you want, you can also download the files from the resources section. I have here 3 files, the index.html, style.css, and app.js. I will tell you a few things about each file and then we will start coding. First thing first, we have head and inside there, title and link. Nothing has changed. Then in the body, I have a new ID. This is going to be, for me, bar charts. Maybe for you, it's something else. I also have added 2 scripts. Let's go to the second one, which is the app.js. And this is my controller. This is where all the action and all the logic goes. We will see this in a couple of seconds. But first, let's see the script with d3.v5.js. This is the link between our app and D3.js. If you're wondering where did I find this source file, then let me show you. And I did find it in github.com d3/g3. I will leave all the links that I will be browsing in the resources section. So if you want to install D3, there are a couple of ways to do it. The simplest one, and the one that I'm also going to be using, is by simply copy and pasting this line. So you will have source d3.js.org, d3.version5.javascript, and that's it. If you also want, you can take the minified version, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, let's go back to the text editor. And that was it with index.html. Let's continue with style. In style, I have my ID, bar chart, and inside there I have 4 variables. I have width, height, margin, and background color. Width is set to 800 pixels, height to 400 pixels, margin 20 pixels on top, then auto, bottom 20 pixels, and then auto again for left. Last but not least, we have a background color of gray, but you can choose your own. Okay, and let's continue to the app.js. I believe this is the most interesting file. And we have some lines here, and I'm going to explain to you everything. First of all, we have our variable data, and this is an array. Inside this array, we can see that we have smaller array of numbers. Every set of 2 numbers will represent a circle. So we are going to have a circle in the point of 200 for x and 50 for y. So that's why we need our axis. We have to know where is every number in the x and the y axis. After that, we also have 2 variables, one for the width and the other for the height. I have named them bar chart width and bar chart height. You can have your own width or height. We couldn't continue without having an SVG. How did I create it? Well, simply by having a new variable named SVG. This is not mandatory and you can name it however you like. But of course, you should select it, and the name here, the bar chart name for me, should be the same as you have in HTML and CSS. So first, select your ID, then append the SVG, and then you will need two more attributes, one for height and one for the width. And accordingly, I have budget height and width. Now let's keep going with creating scales. Scales are something really important in D3.js, so actually let's go and take a look at them. On the documentation on github.com d3/scale, and you will find this link in the resources section. Scales are a convenient abstraction for a fundamental task in visualization. I'm not going to get into more details here, but of course feel free to read about it. More specifically, we are going to use linear scale, so let's find about that. D3.scaleLinear takes two variables, domain and range. D3linear constructs a new continuous scales with a specified domain and range. The default interpolator and clumping disabled. If either domain or range are not specified, each defaults to 0 and 1. Okay, we will see how that works, but before that, maybe you don't know what is domain and range. And that would be a good question, so let's also find out what is domain and range. If domain is specified, sets the scale's domain to the specified array of numbers. The array must contain two or more elements. In our case, this could be 2. If the elements in the given array are not numbers, they will be coarse 2 numbers. If domain is not specified, returns a copy of the scale's current domain. And that's it. Now for range. If range is specified, set the scale's range to the specified array of values, and we will define both domain and range. The array must contain 2 or more elements. Unlike the domain, elements in the given array need to be numbers. Any value that is supposed by the underlying interpolator will work, though note that numeric ranges are required for invert. Okay, we will see all of these in action, so let's go back to the text editor. And here is how you create scales. First, you need to define a variable. In my case, this is x scale. Then you will have d3.scaleLinear, and this is our main function. From there, you will need domain and range. As we saw, domain takes 2 or more parameters. In our case, this is 2. The first one is going to be 0, and the next one is going to be d3.max, which is the maximum, and it will take data and an anonymous function. This anonymous function takes d as data, and it returns the first number, and because we are talking about arrays, this is actually 0. 0 refers to x. In the next case, we will have returned 1, and everything else is the same. So again, I need a domain with max, but the return value is going to be 1 for y. But we didn't speak about range. Range also takes 2 numbers. The first one is going to be 0, and the other one is going to be width. The same goes for y scale. First, I need 0, and then I need height. Height usually go with y, whereas width usually goes with x. But you will get more of that in action. Next step? Well, next step is to actually create the circles. Are you ready for that? Well, I hope you are. First thing first, I need my comments to keep my code clean. So let's do that. We will have an SVG, and this will take the select all. Now inside the select all, of course, I need my circles, and obviously I need my data, the enter, and append. For the append, I will need the circles. And now I'm going to be needing 2 more things. As always, circles need cx and cy. Let's see how we are going to write that. For the cx, I will need the cx, and of course an anonymous function with d. this function will return an x scale d0. As I mentioned earlier, 0 goes to x, whereas for the cy, I'm going to be returning the d1. What else do we need for circle? Can you take a moment to think about it? Of course, you need a radius. And this time, the anonymous function will return 1 to 10. Great! Last but not least, I will also like to add some color. This is going to be with attribute, fill, and in my case, the color will be orange, but for you, it can be like whatever you like. So far, you should be having your circles. So let's save that and refresh our page. Okay, we actually did it. We do have our circles and I can see everything, which is a good sign. If you need more information, you can go to elements or in sources. Now, if you don't see this panel here, then you can have it with two ways. Either right click and then click on inspect, or we can just go Ctrl+Shift+I for Windows user or Command+Shift+I for Mac users. Now, if I go to body and div by bar chart, you will notice that inside here I have quite a few things. I have my SVG with height 40 and width 80 and all those circles. Remember that we didn't wrote those things in the HTML, but these things were created by D3 for us, and that's how we have them. Every point can be corresponded to our actual thing right here. I think that this is quite interesting, and I think that this is the power of D3.js. We didn't write all those elements in the HTML, but yet we can see them. And we can see them because we have a connection through the app.js, the index.html, the CSS, and of course the D3.js. Okay, let's go back to our text editor because we still have to add the x-axis. Adding the axis is quite simple, I would say. First of all, let's be clear and add our comment. Alright, I need to create a new variable and I will name it x-axis. The next thing that I will do is to have a d3.axis bottom. And now you maybe wonder, where did I find this axis bottom? Well, let me show you. Again, GitHub d3/d3axis, and you will be able to find this link also in the resources section. So here I have the D3 axis. The axis component renders human-readable reference marks for scales, and yep, we just used scales. If you go a little bit to the bottom, if you scroll down just a little bit, then you will find these things right here. You will see that you can use D3 axis top, right, bottom, and yep, that's what we did. Left, and of course you can have a lot more information. Great, let's go back to the text editor and keep coding. In my axis bottom, I will have to add the x scale, which is something that I used just before in the circles. And right after that, I will need to have my SVG, and here I will append G. G stands for group. I also need my attribute with a class, and it will take the x-axis. So far, I don't have this in my style.css, but later in this course, we are also going to have an x-axis in the style.css. Let's continue with another attribute. Now, this attribute will take two parameters. One will be the transform, and the other one will be translate. Now, here you will notice that I'm using 0 and then bar chart height -20. If you're not using the same numbers as I am, and I mean here if you're not using the same width and height as I am, then maybe the -20 won't work for you. It's okay to take your time and figure out the numbers by your own, and actually I would encourage you to do that. Last but not least, I will have to call my x-axis. Great, that's it. Let's save it. And if you did everything as I did, then you should be able to view your axis. It starts from 0 and it goes through 400. That's it, guys. You just did your very first code in D3.js. You have your circles, you have your x-axis, and I hope that you are excited and ready to continue.